Brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily reflect the views of Money Radio staff, management, or advertisers, and do not represent an offer to buy or sell any securities. Some interviews heard on this program may be sponsored by the participants. It's time for Health Futures with Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and it must be Friday. And it is Labor Day weekend Friday. It's hard to believe it's the first day of the month of September. And September happens to be my birthday month, so it's going to be a great month. And hopefully we're going to start chilling down a little bit because it is literally the dog days of summer, and it's hot out here. But then again, we live here in Arizona, and at this time, we really need to pause and think about our friends in Texas and Louisiana who suffered a major, major tragedy over the last week. This hurricane named Harvey came in and just kind of turned things up and made it quite a disaster. And you know, for those that are listening in, there are ways that you can help out, and I would encourage you to seek out those ways. I'm not here to profess one versus the other, but the American Red Cross is one that you might want to start with. And they do need our help, assistance, and certainly prayers. So if you are just tuning in for the very, very first time, Health Futures is a show about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. And how do we do this? We do this by bringing extraordinary guests to the show, and they give us tips to the trade. They educate us. They tell us what's going on. I've had research scientists on. I've had physicians, concierge physicians, financial service personnel. I've had lawyers, and I've had accountants. Too many to name, but if you do get a chance, go out to our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button up on the very top. Click down, and you'll see a radio button afterwards. And you'll catch about 170 to 180 episodes that we've been bringing to you for the last 4.5 years. So I want to get the show started because we've got a lot to cover, and I'm very blessed to have two individuals here in the studio that I met when I first got started about 14.5 years ago. And they really did a great job of shaping who I am here today and advocating for our vulnerable older adults out there that really need advocates and need people to assist them in navigating this myriad of options that are out there. And I want to introduce the woman to my left. Her name is Debbie Weecks, and she has a law firm called the Law Offices of Debbie Weecks. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad to be here, too, or glad to have you here. And just to her left and across from me is Don Scher. And Don has a law practice. It's the Law Offices of Donald T. Scher. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bob. Good to be here.
And, you know, I teed it off by saying these are two individuals that I met, and I really admire and respect. They always are looking to help and assist somebody, and I'm talking about mainly older adults, really navigate to the best solution. And a lot of times I'm sitting here talking about when they run into these challenges, but both of these individuals also do a lot in terms of preparing individuals. And I think that's a great segue, and one of the things I want to talk to both of you about is preparation. And preparation really starts with advanced directives.
Sure.
And, you know, advanced directives are something that we've talked about here, but you know, advanced directives are something that we as a society and those in the law practice advocate, because sometimes you might find yourself incapacitated and not being able to make decisions on your own. And, you know, who is going to handle those affairs for you? So, you know, Debbie, can you talk to us a little bit about this? tell us about advance directives and the importance of them.
Sure, be happy to. Thank you. And advance directives, when we're talking about it today in this context, we're talking primarily about powers of attorney and living will. Powers of attorney are documents that an adult, that's anyone over 18, who has mental capacity, understanding what he or she is doing, may name who would be in charge of his or her affairs if that person's called the principal, is unable to serve. Whereas the living will, people confuse it. It's not a will like your last will and testament. It's your will about your life. Do you want hydration, nutrition, pain medication, and so on in the event that you cannot make and communicate your decisions? So that's a directive of what you would like, but the others are directives of whom you put in charge. I'm going to ask my colleague here, Don Scher, to talk about some of the healthcare directives, and then I'll talk about some of the legal and financial ones. Don?
Thank you, Debbie. I want to make sure that the audience understands that living will is a nickname for an advanced medical directive. And the advanced medical directive comes into play at a time when a person is deemed to be in a terminal illness, terminal state, and they may be judged to have little or no chance of recovering. There's no brain activity, or they're in a coma without possible recovery. And at that time, you determine whether or not you want to be maintained on artificial life support and wait for a miracle to happen. You might also make a determination of whether or not you're going to make an organ donation. You can provide a number of things to carry out your wishes in that document. These documents are not recorded. You need to have someone who knows where they are and have access to them and can bring them to the medical practitioners that are taking care of you.
Just to add there, in Arizona only, because we're only talking about Arizona, of course, today, Secretary of State does have a portal at its website for some of these healthcare directives if you choose to log on and provide passwords and so forth. So
Right.
if you wish to address that in context, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's quite all right. I appreciate that. When we talk about powers of attorney, we talk about the fiduciary duty that an agent owes to the principal. The senior, the person giving the power of attorney to another person, is the principal, and the person who is going to act on behalf of the principal is the agent. And it's a contract, and it applies the law of agency, and the agent owes a fiduciary duty to the principal. That fiduciary duty means that they act solely in the best interest of the principal, that they are loyal, they are faithful, they are competent in terms of performing the tasks that they're performing on behalf of the principal.
So you want to be careful on who you select to be that person, because you want to make sure that they have those skill sets, correct?
Absolutely.
And the most important one being trust.
All too often, parents only think of naming children.
Exactly.
And they don't understand the capabilities of the children to carry out their wishes or to do what they think is best for the parents. And I draw that distinction intentionally, because I want my agents to do what I tell them I want done. I don't want them to guess about what's in my best interests. They may be divergent concepts.
In that regard, we have two concepts. One would be the best interest standard, and then one would be where the agent has to imagine what the person would want, rather, and then the other is following those instructions. So you really do want to have been able to give the instruction ahead of time, like Mr. Scher is saying. You want to make sure that if you are naming agents, they know you're naming them, they know what your desires are, what kind of decisions you'd make, so that they're not substituting their judgment for your judgment. So we have substituted judgment or best interest standards, and that's a very important concept. Also, to name multiple people, successors. If you name one person and that person's not available or is in a car accident with you or whatever, it's as if you don't have the document, because now it's not in effect. The person you named cannot serve.
You know, I know we're coming up on the end of our first segment, and this is such an important topic. It's something that, you know, we have talked about over and over the last 4.5 years. And, you know, we'll pick up a lot of this on the second segment, but I want to just say this. I mean, one is just naming those people and having the documents, but two is making sure they know what your wishes are. And we have to make sure that they know so they can act on our individual behalves.
And three, if I may, that those documents are accessible to the people whom you've named. That means maybe give them a copy or have the original in the home or in your safe at home. If they're in your safe at the bank and your agents need to get in and they are not a signatory on your bank deposit, safe deposit box, they can't get in without a judge's order. And the point of these advanced directives is to avoid that.
You know, it's interesting, too, is we have a lot of transplants here from other states, and I think I learned this from you, Debbie, about 14 years ago. Just because you planned your estate back in Minnesota, New York, Florida, and you bring that stuff over here does not mean that it conforms to our state rules and regulations. We can talk about that, too. Just because you had it done, you should have them revisited if you are a resident here in Arizona. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. James, thank you for a little Coldplay taking us out. It's hard to believe we're down one segment. I've got Don Scher and Debbie Weecks here in the studio. They come from two different law practices, but they share in their same vision for planning advanced directives. Stay tuned. Come on back for our second segment. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Gary Kolb. I'm host of the nationally syndicated radio show Investor's Edge. We're not just handsome radio people. We manage investors' money for a living, specializing in fee-based discretionary money management. No big commissions, just a fee on the assets that's managed. We also provide a full range of personalized services, including retirement planning, insurance, fixed income, and educational needs, all to assist you in achieving your financial goals. Understanding not all individuals have the same needs, we will carefully evaluate your personal goals to determine a proper investment strategy. If your current approach to investing is not getting you where you would like to be, call us to make an appointment for a complimentary portfolio review. The number to call, 888-422-5559. That's 888-422-5559. That's 888-422-5559. 5559.
Have you been turned down for a mortgage loan recently or still interested in buying a home? There may be a way now. Hi, Joe Capitano here, Senior Vice President, Homeowners Financial Group. There have been some recent changes in how lenders qualify borrowers that could make a difference in your ability to buy. Until now, most lenders would not allow you to qualify if you added up all your monthly obligations, divided them into your gross income, and if it was more than 45%. Now, in some cases, they'll allow that to go up to 50% of your debt-to-income ratio. That could be just the difference it takes to qualify you. Also, credit reporting is changing. Most credit bureaus are no longer going to report most judgments, which could make a difference and dramatically improve your credit score. If you feel any of these items could help you, maybe the lender didn't work hard enough for you. Call me, Joe Capitano, 480-305-8545, or just go to joeloans.com. Back number 090-6222, MLS 9826, Equal Housing Lender.
Be sure to listen to Joe every other Friday on Mastering Money, right here on Money Radio.
It's the Beauty Rest Labor Day sale. Get a free box spring or savings up to $600 on a Beauty Rest Smart Motion base. Find a retailer at BeautyRestRetailers.com. Get your Beauty Rest at Spencer's TV and Appliance.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You, and I'm your host, Bob Roth. And if you're just tuning in, I've got two attorneys here in the studio, attorneys I met many years ago, and I have a great admiration and respect for. I've got Don Scher and I've got Debbie Weecks, and they have their respective practices that they're representing. But I also have 4 other people here in the studio, and this is a first for Health Futures, and it may be a first here at Money Radio. We are filming our show live, and we'll have this available up on Debbie's website, and Debbie's website is Weecks Law, and that's spelled Weecks C as in Charlie, KSLAW.com. And you can find it up on our website at a later date, too, at CypressHomeCare.com. And, I always admired those guys on ESPN, Mike and Mike. Mike Greenberg and Mike Golick, who used to live here. They do their show. The only thing we're missing here is we don't have the bobbleheads. But Dan Weecks, I want to give him a plug. He has a company called Weecks Productions, LLC, and his tagline is your complete media solution. If you need to reach him, you can reach him at 623-850-3275 or at Dan at Weecks Production. Again, that's WEECKS Productions.com. Or check them out at www.weeksproductions.com. So when we left the first segment, we were talking about advanced directives. And, Don, you brought something up at the break. I was talking about having your plans done in other states and coming here. And I rely so much on you guys when it comes to the law. So please explain to our listening audience. I may have misspoke a little bit, but you should always have your estate plan revisited. But if you have your estate plan done in another state, how will it apply here in the state of Arizona?
Well, when we are speaking of powers of attorney, particularly a power of attorney that's properly made and executed according to the laws of the state where it was done, it would be enforceable in Arizona, and an Arizona court would apply the law of the state where the power of attorney was done, unless the power of attorney specifically states to apply the law wherever the person, the principal, is residing.
Got it.
In that case. But also remember that powers of attorney say that something to the effect that the principal is unable to express their wishes. I had my father's power of attorney, and during his last illness, he was perfectly competent and capable, but he wanted me to make the decisions. And I, with the proper power of attorney, I was able to do so.
Right.
Otherwise, I would not have been.
But at the same time, what we talked about before we ended the first segment, you knew what his wishes were, and you were able to carry those out. And, we know the classic cases, the Terry Shivos of the world, et cetera, where, those wishes weren't really understood. And it's so important to put these set of documents together.
Right. Yeah. So you can have a lot of situations where you have some family disharmony develop, and sometimes it's because people see things differently. Sometimes it's because you don't have those documents in place. So the Terry Schiavo case out of Florida, and Karen Ann Quinlan was a case people knew years before that. These kind of cases sometimes are very, very difficult because you may not have documents in place. You may have parents who want to do something different than the husband wants to do,
right,
or something along those lines. Just wanted to also, if I may, clarify so people know we won't have time enough to discuss that today, but in Arizona, there are primarily 3 types of powers of attorney that we'd be talking about. The general, durable power of attorney. So general is generally over finances and legal matters. The word durable means it survives your incapacity, but it does not survive your death. So if you pass, your power of attorney dies with you. The healthcare power of attorney are the medical advance directives, and the mental health care power of attorney. So just wanted to let people know, and it is a good idea to see an attorney. It doesn't have to be one of us, but to see an attorney to make sure you do those well and you have somebody to make them all inclusive of your particular circumstance. Although in the state of Arizona, some of our government agencies do have samples that are a good guide.
You mentioned the Secretary of State, also the Arizona Attorney General's office.
Thank you. And the self-service center at the clerk of the court for Maricopa County.
But, I will give this disclaimer. You should always seek professional advice. Don't do that on your own.
Let me add one thing to what Debbie mentioned, and that is the mental health care power of attorney.
Thank you.
I include mental health powers in the powers of attorney that I draft for health care. But if you don't have mental health powers under your power of attorney agreement, then you're forced to go into court and have a guardianship created in order to make those same decisions, which is a time-consuming and an expensive process.
And that actually is a perfect thing to talk about. The guardianship and conservatorship is actually where somebody would be ordered by a judge to be in charge of your affairs through a process of petition and many documents that go with it that are required. And then the judge would decide, but you'd have a court-appointed attorney. The person appointed may be your family or friend, but if there's not someone available, or if the judge has a question about the propriety of a particular appointee, the judge could also go to a private list of people who are fiduciaries by trade. That's their living, and they're certified by the Supreme Court for that purpose. Conservatorship is over the assets and finances. If you think of it, what's the end goal if you do your powers of attorney? The end goal is put somebody in charge of your affairs if you need assistance later. What's the end goal of a guardianship and conservatorship? Pretty much the same goal in most cases, assuming there's no wrongdoing. So one is private and you've done it ahead of time yourself and pre-planned, and the other is when the people around you need to petition to a court because you don't have those documents in effect or because they are inadequate for the need.
So conservatorship is over the finances.
It's generally over finances and
guardianship is over health, right?
Guardianship would be over the person.
The person, their well-being.
That's right. And for some extra reading, if you go to the legislative website, you can go to Title 14 of the Arizona Revised Statutes. You can get a lot more reading. It's very in-depth, but that's the general idea.
Awesome.
And it's not just health care. It's issues of how you live, where you live, under the circumstances of your living arrangement.
You know, and I love the fact that you brought up the mental health care power of attorney because, you know, since I met you guys back 14, almost 15 years ago, 20% of my census, and typically we have about 200 clients that are on service at any given time, 20% back in the day had some kind of memory care challenge. It's almost half now. Mm-hmm. So, you know, our listening audience should really pay really special note of this. When you do get your affairs in order, really think about adding that mental health care power of attorney. It's real important to have that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree. If I may add something in this regard, a lot of people don't know, this is somewhat new in the last few years, that in Arizona under our legislative law, if a child is incapacitated and will not be able to be self-sufficient in the sense of handling his or her own affairs at age 18, a parent or interested party could petition the courts around age 17 and a half so that the process is done with the judge's orders taking effect on the 18th birthday. So that person continues with someone helping. The IEP program for individualized plans at schools would continue working with the person appointed by a judge and so forth. So you can do that. The other thing that's new in the law only since January 1st of this past year is the provision that if you had a family law case, that means in the family department of the Superior Court, a paternity or a divorce type of case, that if you had orders in place for a child who has now turned 18 and who is incapacitated to handle his or her own affairs, within 2 years of the age 18 mark, if a petition is brought for guardianship conservatorship, the court will look back to see what the prior orders were in terms of whom to appoint, whether it's both parents together, one parent over another, and so forth. The judge isn't bound by it necessarily. It depends on circumstances, but there's a strong presumption in favor of following the prior orders.
Wow. It's amazing having you here, Debbie and Don. I mean, there's so much that I don't know and the regular Joe or Joan doesn't know, but, you know, if you need any information at all relative to this, you'll want to contact them. And when we come back on our third segment, I'll give you their contact information. It's halftime here at Health Futures. We'll be right back.
The bottom of the hour, we pause for a look at the world's news. Then we're back with Money Talk. We're Money Radio 1510 AM and 105.3 FM.
As cleanup from Hurricane Harvey continues, there are reports of long lines at gas stations in Dallas and other Texas cities. Governor Greg Abbott says there's not a shortage of gasoline.
There's plenty of fuel, plenty of gasoline in the United States of America. There's plenty of gasoline in the state of Texas. All that said, we are ensuring an even greater supply of gasoline so we can tamp down any concern about accessibility.
Hurricane Irma continues to churn in the Atlantic, now at Category 2, with a likelihood it'll develop into a major storm. Meteorologist Allison Chinchar says it's too early to ultimately determine where Irma is headed.
The good news is at least most of the models that we have don't have it going towards Texas or Louisiana.
Heading into the long holiday weekend, the Wall Street numbers are headed higher. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up by 65 points, the S&P 500 gaining 7. I'm Ann Cates.
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
Ace is the best place to get all you need for a great-looking yard this Labor Day weekend. Come in now and get top Scott's products for only $10 each after instant savings. Choose from Scott's Lawn Food, Easy Seed, Ortho Home Defense, Roundup Pump and Go, and more. All just $10 each. Hurry into your local Ace, where top Scott's products are $10 each after instant savings. Through Monday only. Valid on select items and sizes for Ace Rewards members. Limit 2. See participating store for details.
We don't just carry our boxes to their destination. We carry your business. We carry your growth, your love of your products, and your service. When you hand your product over to us, we know how important it is to you, so we make it just as important to us. It's as if your entire store is right there in our hands. That's why at the United States Postal Service, we deliver more e-commerce packages to homes than anyone else in the country. The United States Postal Service. Priority, you.
For a happier life, remember, it's your money. Be smart with it. And listening every day to Money Radio will cause your money IQ to go up, way up.
Hi, I'm Gary Kolb. I'm host of the nationally syndicated radio show Investor's Edge. We're not just handsome radio people. We manage investors' money for a living, specializing in fee-based discretionary money management. No big commissions, just a fee on the assets that's managed. We also provide a full range of personalized services, including retirement planning, insurance, fixed income, and educational needs, all to assist you in achieving your financial goals. Understanding not all individuals have the same needs, we will carefully evaluate your personal goals to determine a proper investment strategy. If your current approach to investing is not getting you where you would like to be, call us to make an appointment for a complimentary portfolio review. The number to call, 888-422-5559. That's 888-422-5559. That's 888-422-5559.
Are you interested in the interest you're paying on your mortgage? I assure you your lender is interested in your interest, and that may not be in your best interest. Hi, Joe Capitano here, Senior Vice President with Homeowners Financial Group. You know, every lender charges interest to lend you money. But did you know you pay more interest in the first 1/3 of the scheduled time than the last 2/3? That's why your loan balance goes down so slowly during that time. You're paying more interest than principal. What if you paid principal first, then a small amount of interest based only on the remaining balance? You could dramatically pay off your home much sooner and pretend to save tens of thousands of dollars in interest. This program does exist, and it's so simple. Just call me, Joe Capitano, 480-305-8545, 480-305-8545, or just go to joeloans.com and find me. Back number 090-6222, MLS number 9826, Equal Housing Lender.
Be sure to listen to Joe every other Friday on Mastering Money, right here on Money Radio.
To relieve muscle cramps in your legs and feet, reach for TheraWorks Relief. This fast-acting foam can even prevent muscle cramps. Get TheraWorks Relief today at TheraWorksRelief.com.
Bruce Vail with Your Money Now. There's bad news for drivers this holiday weekend as gasoline prices have now jumped to a 2-year high thanks to Hurricane Harvey. The fuel price tracking website Gas Buddy says prices now average more than $2.53 a gallon. That's the highest average price since September of 2015. On Wednesday, prices were up about 11 cents a gallon from a week earlier. Now they're up 18 cents a gallon from a week ago. 2 people from South Carolina have filed a proposed class action lawsuit against Amazon over glasses they purchased to watch last week's solar eclipse. The man and woman claim they experienced headaches and eye watering after watching the eclipse, and days after using the glasses they had blurry and distorted vision. On Wall Street, stocks remain higher, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 67 points. The Nasdaq Composite is ahead 10 points. The S&P 500 is up 6. That's Your Money Now.
Blue Star medicated ointment gets 5-star reviews from our loyal users for fast relief of the pain and itch of almost any skin irritation.
Blue Star soothes insect bites and fungal infections.
It really works on the summer rashes I get every year.
I had psoriasis on my elbows. Blue Star worked wonders.
Amazing stuff. Smear a bit on and the itch is gone.
Look for the white box with the Blue Star in the first aid section. Feel Blue Star work fast, or your money back.
Ransomware is software that can infiltrate your business through email, enabling cyber criminals to hijack sensitive information as ransom for your own data's release. Leveraging Barracuda email security with advanced threat detection can stop a ransomware attack in its tracks. As an added measure, Barracuda Backup allows you to recover your data without having to surrender to extortion. Crime doesn't pay when you protect your business data with Barracuda. Go to barracuda.com/ransomware to learn more.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, and we're on our third segment here. It is Friday, September 1st, and we are really, really pleased to have Debbie Weecks and Don Scher here in the studio. They have separate law practices, but they work together, and we're covering a lot of great material. And if you missed our first two segments, go up to our website at cypresshomecare.com, click on the media button, and then hit the drop down, and you'll find the radio show button there, and you'll be able to catch the first two segments, and you'll catch these last two as well, and about 170 or 180 that we've been bringing to you for the last 4.5 years. And I do want to give Don and Debbie's contact information out. So if any of the material that we've covered today interests you, if you need professional help, these guys are the best. Don Scher can be reached at 602-478-3555, and Debbie can be reached at 623-933-4877. And Debbie's website is Weecks Law, and that's WEEC as in Charlie, KSLAW.com. So you can reach them at either those numbers or that website, and they can help you. So when we left off on the second segment, we were talking about advanced directives. And I know that, Don, we want to close on this one, but there's a point that you wanted to make. You shared with me in the break. Let's finish off on advanced directives.
Yes, it's essential that we have powers of attorney, as we've described earlier. But in some cases, the court may determine that a guardian or a conservator is required to protect you, and in that case, we want you to nominate the person you would want to serve as your guardian and conservator. And the way you do that is by including that language, that nomination language, in your last will and testament or in the power of attorney itself. You can nominate a person to serve. In fact, you can name a series of persons to serve. If the first one that you name is not available or unwilling to serve, then they can go to the second or the third person you've nominated.
Right.
The court is not bound by this nomination, but it is evidence that they will consider seriously.
Well, and it's interesting, and I just want to wrap up this one piece, and I don't mean to use these cliches. Hold on, Debbie, you want to add something? Go ahead.
Well, just along the same lines, you can also nominate in your own written documents whom you would want the court to appoint as a guardian and conservator for your dependent child or for your spouse if you have an incapacitated spouse and you become unavailable to serve in that capacity yourself.
And that's important. And you mentioned a child, and we've talked about this here on the show. And I have 3 daughters, and I know you got this groovy son over here, and he's got this groovy his wife, your daughter-in-law, Courtney, over here. And, a lot of times people think of these advanced directives for older adults or adults. But if you're 18 years old, and, I have children that are in their early 20s, but God forbid something were to happen to them and they would end up in the ER or in the hospital somewhere, just because I'm their dad doesn't mean they can give me information. So memorialize your wishes. Make sure you have that right to be able to get information so you can make informed decisions.
Well, and that last part is really important. There is a surrogacy law in Arizona regarding the emergency type of decisions for health care, but there's also an order of priority of who can serve and so forth if you don't have documents in place or a court order. So thanks, Bob.
No, perfect. And, you know, I want to finish with the old cliche. Failure to plan is planning to fail. So plan. We gave you a couple websites, the Secretary of State, the Attorney General's website, Arizona Attorney General's, but also always seek professional advice from attorneys like the ones we have here in the studio today. So I want to get on to our next point I wanted to bring up, and that is, you know, you hear a lot of these terminologies in the legal profession, and you know, there are a lot of acronyms and terms I just don't quite understand. But what is a de facto guardian or conservator?
Well, if you think of Latin, because in all good things you learn in law school, they throw Latin at you, and we have to learn it. So Latin, if we're talking about somebody who's appointed as a matter of law or serving as a matter of law, it would be de jure, J-U-R-E. So D-E-J-U-R-E, de jure, of law. De facto is of fact. So think of it as you might have a neighbor or a friend or somebody who's helping you just as a matter of fact, not in your documents, not pursuant to a judge's order. The public should not be frightened into thinking they should not help their friends and their neighbors. Of course, we all should, and that's a wonderful thing. But when you take over as a de facto, as a matter of fact, guardian or conservator, actually taking over someone's affairs, not just assisting them a little bit, you would be held to the same standard as if you were appointed by a judge. And that is actually within the statutes or the legislative law we're going to talk about after this part regarding exploitation, abuse, and neglect of vulnerable adults. That's where the wording de facto comes in. De facto guardian, de facto conservator. Sometimes those people who just take over are wrongdoers. For instance, meeting a vulnerable adult and saying, may I take you home and help you with your groceries, and getting into their business where they should not be. Most of the time it's not. Most of the time it's somebody just trying to help, but it could be either. So the fact that you are named in documents under a court order or de facto guardian or conservator, those are three ways that you're in charge of another adult's affairs. In every instance, it's neither good nor bad. It depends on the actors, so hopefully no one engages in wrongdoing and we protect our vulnerable adults.
With a de facto guardian or conservator, they have all the same duties and obligations as a person nominated or in the power of attorney. They have the same duty of loyalty, faithfulness, and absolute abolition of doing anything that is contrary to the best interests of the principal. So all those same duties apply even to somebody who is just helping gratuitously a friend or neighbor. You have obligations and responsibilities.
And that's the key. I mean, it's a big job. And I mean, when you have these conversations or you take on this undertaking, you have to realize that you are taking on the responsibility of this individual and helping them make these decisions.
That's right. And sometimes it's a broader scope of responsibility. You can have a limited or a general guardianship. You can have a limited or general power of attorney. We probably all heard of the power of attorney. You go to the car dealership, you buy a car, you sign a power of attorney, the dealer gets your registration and title in place. That's only very limited in scope. Or giving someone authority to sell your house because you're in another state when the transaction's happening. Whereas general is broader. Same concept in guardianships. Same concept with de facto guardian and conservator. How much are you helping? Are you really taking over? Or are you just taking meals over and helping in the evening? That kind of thing.
Right. Well, I know we have a lot to cover. I want to get over to my next question.
Yes,
and if we can't answer it all here, we'll pick it up on the fourth segment. But is there a law that addresses when someone takes advantage of a senior or otherwise incapacitated adult, and what immediate steps are helpful?
Well, the key there is actually the word vulnerable adult. You can be 18 and a vulnerable adult, And you can also be incapacitated physically, but quite capable mentally to handle your affairs and take care of yourself. So vulnerable adult is the concept. It used to say vulnerable or incapacitated in Title 46 of the Arizona Revised Statutes. If you want to read up about it, it's sections 451 to 459. And it's actually called the Adult Protective Services Act. And Adult Protective Services is the government agency that might come out and visit if there's a call to somebody's home. They may show up at the door and say, we'd like to see what's going on, see if this person's okay, determine if they might intervene and in what regard. So the Adult Protective Service Act in Title 46, Section 451 defines vulnerable adult. The other two key people are the person in a position of trust and confidence to the vulnerable adult. Actually, the other one person, excuse me. And so basically you're undertaking some very serious duties. Typically, you'll hear people talk about the vulnerable adult exploitation, neglect, and abuse statutes, and that's what they're talking about. When we come back, Don's going to be addressing a little bit more under Title 46.
And just a little bit more about if you see this, it's that old adage about you see something, say something. I mean, I know that people in banks are very cognizant of an older adult when a young person comes in and they're withdrawing a lot of money. But you as a consumer should be looking, and if you see something that doesn't look right, you mentioned Adult Protective Services. I've talked about the Attorney General's office, and you can call the police department. I mean, we have many vulnerable adults out there, and I know we have plenty of material to talk about in our fourth segment. It's hard to believe we're down our third one. You've been listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I've got lawyers in the office today, or in the house today. I've got Don Scher and Debbie Weecks. We'll be right back.
Arizona investment property experts are now your Mexico investment property experts. Join investment property experts this Wednesday for an informative Investing in Mexico real estate workshop. Learn about investing in Puerto Peñasco, Mexico, and how you can earn a net 15% annual return. IPX's crown jewel in Mexico is the Esmeralda Resort, located on Sandy Beach in Puerto Peñasco, Mexico. Puerto Peñasco is the popular beach getaway known as Rocky Point. Only 3.5 hours away from Phoenix, Arizona, this is the perfect investment and vacation opportunity for you. As an investor, you will not only earn 15%, but you will have access to numerous investment projects. Currently, we are offering Esmeralda investors discounted lots, houses, and condos that can be purchased and flipped. And best of all, everything is 100% turnkey. With the home port commencing construction this year and its planned completion in 2019, this project will be a big boost to the economy and investment real estate in Rocky Point.
Learn more by attending this informative workshop. Call 602-254-6244 or visit azinvestmentpropertyexperts.com.
Hi, I'm Johnny Dean.
And I'm Rick, the Professor Plum.
Every day on Bucket Strategy Investing, we're talking about financial planning, investment decisions, and retirement strategies.
We focus on wealth education and the strategy designed for the needs you have today
and the goals you have for the future. Tune in to Bucket Strategy Investing
and call in with questions.
Retirement strategies, taxes, Social Security, and more. That's what we're talking about on Bucket Strategy Investing.
It's an extremely valuable resource. It's found in offices, buildings, and schools. It's a resource that speaks volume, yet it never makes a sound. Everyone recognizes it. Everyone uses it. Interestingly enough, it's rarely discussed. Croy Sign Systems, designers and manufacturers of architectural and ADA signs since 1981. Let Croy be your resource for identification, direction, and information. Give Croy Signs a call at 480-619-6070 or online at kroysigns.com.
Home isn't just a place, it's a feeling. The feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you. Learn more at ADT.com. ADT, home safe home.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and it is Friday, September 1st, and we're on our fourth segment, and I've got lawyers in the house today. I've got Debbie Weecks and Don Scher, and I want to give their contact information out again. I want you to know that you can reach Debbie Weecks at either weekslaw.com, and she spells Weecks, W-E-E-C as in Charlie, KSLAW.com. You can reach her at her phone number at 623-933-4877. Or you can reach Don Scher, and he can be reached at 602-478-3555. And we have been talking about lawyers. We've been talking about protective orders. We've been talking about advanced directives, and we got a lot more to talk about, but I can't help but be distracted by all these cameras that are in my studio. This is a first for Health Futures. It could be a first for Money Radio. We've got 4 other individuals here in the studio, and one happens to be Dan Weecks, who is the owner of Weecks Productions, LLC, and again, that's spelled W-E-E-C-K-S. I think Debbie and Dan are somehow related, but they are related. Dan is Debbie's son, and he's doing a fantastic job. And if you want to reach him, you can reach him at 623-850-3275, or email him at Dan@Weecks Production. And again, there's a C in there right after the double E, W-E-E-C-K-S Productions.com, or go to www.weeksproductions.com. So we left off when we ended our third segment talking about disadvantaged seniors, elder abuse. I said, see something, say something. I want to come to closure on this before we get over to the next point. Is there any final statements or final things you want to share with regard to vulnerable adults? We talked about Adult Protective Services. We talked about the Arizona Attorney General's office.
Well, you would report to the Superior Court if there's an open guardianship conservatorship case, and we'll talk about bringing a court case in that regard in a moment. I think Don wanted to go ahead and talk about duties to report, mandatory and optional.
Sure.
Yes, I do. And I want to add to what you just said, Bob, that it's not just a case of someone intentionally harming an adult. There may be a situation of neglect. That's just as serious, and it constitutes abuse as well. Under our Arizona statutes, the elder abuse statutes, as a matter of course or common sense, we would say anybody who sees abuse or neglect should report it. Sometimes they don't know who to report it to. And the easy answer to that is you can report it to the police, you can report it to Adult Protective Services, or you can report it to Area Agency on Aging. All 3 of those.
With the Area Agency on Aging, let's just add in, don't forget there's the Ombudsman program there. And I do want people to know about that because they can go into any facility in the state of Arizona, or another agency they can refer you to will have authority to check on the well-being of an adult if you're concerned for someone in a facility.
Yeah. And the reason we say you can call the police is that you should understand that violation of the elder abuse statutes is a crime. There are civil and criminal penalties for anyone who breaches their fiduciary duty under a power of attorney, as a de facto guardian or conservator, as a bad actor. So there are a number of people who have a mandatory duty to report elder abuse or exploitation if they see it. These are health professionals, doctors, hospital interns or residents, surgeons, your dentist, a psychologist, obviously an attorney or an accountant.
Home care company, home health care company. We've reported.
Yeah.
And if I can mention, if you see a home health care company or a hospice or home care company that's practicing outside of scope and maybe putting that individual in harm's way, the Office of Inspector General is a person that you may want to contact. If they're part of Access, then contact Access and let them know what's going on. Unfortunately, we have amongst our communities so many good people, but we do have bad actors out there, and whether it's intentional or unintentional, we need to be able to protect our vulnerable adults.
Well, I'm sorry, Don, go ahead.
Absolutely. Bob, as an in-home health care agency, you have assumed fiduciary duties with regard to your patients or
clients. Yep.
And anyone who has responsibility for a vulnerable adult has a mandatory duty to report.
Exactly.
Any instance.
And that can be a derivative fiduciary duty sometimes. If an attorney is talking with the person who wants to take over or control the other person who's vulnerable, to help that person, of course, then the attorney there may not have a direct connection to the vulnerable adult, but has a derivative connection through the client who's seeking to assist that vulnerable adult.
That's right. We also have instances where the victim is not very good at disclosing the facts of the exploitation or the abuse, so that when a person observes abuse or exploitation, they need to tell the proper agency what the facts are, because the victim may be afraid of further abuse by that very bad actor.
And I'm going to tell you, Don, I see this every day, and especially when it comes with caregivers, because people are afraid, and I'm talking about on the private caregiver front. Vulnerable adults are afraid to say something because they're afraid that if this person doesn't come, who's going to take care of me?
Well, let me bring up a few points that are important, and you're quite correct that that could occur. If you are in a situation where you can get yourself to the emergency room, then you're more or less in a safe spot. If they know something's going on, they can help get you to shelter. The area agency can provide those resources as well. In Arizona, you can call 211 for all sorts of resources of what services are out there. But one thing that's very, very important is the ability to bring an immediate court action to try to stop something that's happening. A judge in Title 46 cases, that is, say, under the Adult Protective Services Act, may actually have an injunction in place to stop the flow of money, tell the bank not to let funds keep transferring. If there's title to a house issue, then the person who's assisting might do a notice of lease pendants at the Maricopa County Recorder. That's a very serious thing, of course, because there are penalties for a wrongful notice of lease pendants, and they do have to be released on time. But there are all sorts of things the judge has authority to do. So bringing an emergency action, even if it's ex parte, sometimes is required. And Don can just tell you what ex parte means.
We have about 30 seconds here.
Yep.
So, let's close with ex parte and some final questions or final thoughts.
Ex parte just means you can act without giving notice to certain people. You go into court and you present the facts that justify the emergency orders that you're trying to achieve.
You've been listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. It's hard to believe that our show now comes to a close. Debbie Weecks, Don Scher, thank you. It's been a very enlightening show. I know our listening audience has been enlightened. Make it a great day. Come back next week. We'll be right here on Money Radio at 1510 a.m., 105.3 FM. Make it a great day. Have a great weekend.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress HomeCare Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit CypressHomeCare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM.
Bill Gunderson's nationwide Best Stocks radio show is now on Money Radio 1510 AM and 105.3 FM. Every morning from 9 to 10 a.m., professional money manager Bill Gunderson will talk about the economy, markets, and the best stocks now. Bill Gunderson is also the inventor of the Best Stocks Now app and the writer of the weekly Best Stocks Now newsletter. If you like to invest in the markets, this is the show for you. You will not want to miss one episode. Visit GundersonCapital.com for more info. That's GundersonCapital.com.
Money Radio 1510
and 105.3 FM.
KFN in Mesa, Phoenix. Taking a look at the market market's still settling with the Dow up 44 points at 21,990. The S&P 500 up 5 at 2477. The Nasdaq up 6 at 6435. Gold's up $8 at $13.30 an ounce, and oil's up 8 cents at $47 a barrel.
When people want to talk about money, this is the place they come to. And there's more on the way after this break for the latest news. And we begin